It is certainly my pleasure to welcome you here this evening and to welcome you to the 2011 William Julius Wilson Symposium. This symposium is named after one of Washington State University's most outstanding alumni, Dr. William Julius Wilson, who received his doctorate in sociology from WSU in 1996. Since then, Dr. Wilson, 96? 66. The reason I'm a veterinarian, I'm a little bit dyslexic, I can't tell 6s from 9s. Sorry, Dr. Wilson. Needless to say, since leaving here, Dr. Wilson has gone on to have a very distinguished career and is presently a professor at the Harvard University and is widely regarded as one of the nation's leading scholars in the fields of African American studies, race, civil rights, poverty, and social and public policy issues. The award that you're going to see presented tonight is named in his honour to recognise contributions of individuals and organisations who promote social inclusiveness, inclusive social policy and diversity, and who, in doing so, had an impact at both the national and international level. Tonight's symposium, we're going to present the William Julius Wilson Award to Mr. David Simon, who, as I'm sure all of you are very aware, is the creator of the widely applauded HBO television series, The Wire. Dr. Wilson is going to, Mr. Simon is going to receive the William Julius Wilson Award for the advancement of social justice in recognition of his contributions, not only reflected through The Wire, but as a journalist and in his subsequent television productions. He'll receive this award and then proceed to deliver a presentation, which I'm sure is going to be very engaging and mentally stimulating. At the conclusion of that, please don't rush for the exits, because certainly for the students, I would hope that the opportunity to participate in a question and answer session will be well worth sticking around for. So, thank you very much for being here. The order of events is summarised on the inside cover of your program. Symposia like this do not happen by accident or chance. Many people have spent a great deal of effort and contributed a lot of time to ensure that this symposium is a success, truly I guess embodies everything that Dr. Wilson stands for. To introduce Dr. William Julius Wilson and to make a few more comments, it's now my pleasure to introduce the President of Washington State University, a man who is no stranger to, I hope, the great majority of you in the audience, Elson Floyd. Elson.
Provost Bailey, thank you very much for the introduction, and most importantly, thank each and every one of you for being a part of this symposium. There are a great number of things that will happen in the life of a university that will have an indelible imprint. There is no doubt that this symposium truly will reflect that. We have a number of our students who are standing in the hallway, and so why don't you come on in. There are plenty of seats on the other side of the auditorium as well. We're delighted to have each and every one of you here. There are a number of things that will have an indelible imprint on the life of an institution. It is all about the intellectual capacity that's associated with the great universities in this country that will have a distinguishing characteristic. At the center of all of these institutions, quite frankly, are our students. And outside of that are faculty members who engage in research and scholarship that will make a difference in the improvement of the quality of life and to advance scholarship, not only here in the state of Washington, but globally. I'm pleased to be able to join you this evening to honor two people who have, in their own individual ways, dramatically impacted the way that Americans think about questions of race, questions of poverty, and life in urban America. This is the second anniversary of the awarding of the William Julius Wilson Award for the Advancement of Social Justice, and is named in honor of a man whose thoughtful analysis of these issues is simply fundamental to any public discussion about the best way forward for our cities. We are always quick to point out that this influential sociologist earned his PhD at Washington State University, and that he has maintained close ties with our legendary sociologist, Dr. James Short. Dr. Wilson received from WSU the Regents Distinguished Alumnus Award, the highest award our university recognizes, in 1988. Dr. Wilson is one of only 20 university professors at Harvard University, the highest professorial distinction for a Harvard faculty member. He received his doctoral degree in sociology in 1966 from Washington State University and has worked at the University of Massachusetts at Amherst, the University of Chicago, where he was appointed the Lucy Flower University Professor and Director of the University of Chicago's Center for the Study of Urban Inequity. He joined the faculty at Harvard in 1996. He has received some 44, count them, honorary degrees, including those from Princeton and Columbia, the University of Pennsylvania, Northwestern, Johns Hopkins, Dartmouth, and the University of Amsterdam in the Netherlands. Dr. Wilson has been elected to the National Academy of Sciences, the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, the National Academy of Education, the American Psychological Society, the Institution of Medicine, and the British Academy. The list goes on and on. There are some individuals whose lives really will make a significant difference, not only for individuals such as myself who look up to him as a mentor and a leader and someone whose life I would love to emulate, but also to make an indelible imprint on the sociological issues impacting America today. And it's an added bonus and an added treat that he's an alumnus of Washington State University. But that's only part of the recognition that what Dr. Wilson has achieved. He always comes back whenever we invite him to be a part of the symposium and to be a part of the life of Washington State University. We are truly, truly blessed to have him in our presence. His intellect, his passion, his commitment, his dedication, not only to this institution, but what happens to improve the quality of life in a global world. There is no doubt that he has made a significant impact and will continue to do so. It's my pleasure to ask to the podium Dr. William Julius Wilson.
Thank you, President Floyd, for those very kind remarks. It's great to be back at this university. I had a great day today, and especially a very, very stimulating discussion with the graduate students in the Department of Sociology. Boy, they're really bright. Very stimulating, talking about their research, and I was just so impressed with the original ideas that they are pursuing systematically. And so I want to extend my congratulations to them. Now, it's really a very special honor for me to introduce David Simon, noted author, journalist, and a writer-producer of television series, and the recipient in 2010 of a MacArthur Prize Fellowship. Simon graduated from the University of Maryland, College Park, and then worked as a police reporter at the Baltimore Sun from 1982 to 1995. He took a leave of absence from the Sun to write his first book, Homicide, A Year on the Killing Streets, published in 1991. The book was based on his experiences observing the activities of the Baltimore Police Department Homicide Unit during 1988, described by Newsday, quote, as one of the most engrossing police procedural mystery books ever written, unquote. And this book won the 1992 Edgar Award for Best Fact Crime Book. Homicide, A Year on the Killing Streets, soon became a screen adaptation for the award-winning NBC TV series Homicide, Life on the Street, from 1993 to 1999, on which Simon worked as a writer and producer. In 1997, Simon co-authored with Ed Burns, The Corner, A Year in the Life of an Inner-City Neighborhood, which was a true account of a West Baltimore community dominated by a heavy drug market. The New York Times named The Corner a notable book of the year. The Corner was adapted into a 6-hour TV miniseries by HBO, which Simon co-wrote and produced. The show received 3 Emmy Awards, including Outstanding Writing for a miniseries or a movie. Simon is the co-creator, executive producer, and chief writer of, and was, I should say, the co-creator, executive, well, is the co-creator, executive producer, and chief writer of HBO's television series, The Wire. You haven't passed away yet. In fact, you're in pretty good shape, I would say that, which I will return to in a moment. He's also adapted the nonfiction book Generation Kill into an HBO miniseries and served as co-producer of the project. The series aired in July 2008 and featured 7 68-minute episodes. And finally, David Simon co-created the HBO series Treme with Eric Overmyer, which premiered on April 11, 2010, and ended its second season in 2011. Treme, a series about musicians in post-Katrina New Orleans, focuses on a working-class neighborhood in New Orleans. The series explores political, economic, and social issues beyond the music scene, and like The Wire, uses local actors whenever possible and features a number of actors who starred in The Wire. And I would like to take this opportunity to elaborate briefly on HBO's The Wire, which more than any other show reveals Simon's genius. And I'm pleased to say I co-teach a course at Harvard which is based on The Wire, and it is entitled Urban Inequality and HBO's The Wire. Now I want to say this. In a way that few could ever expect from a television show, The Wire accomplishes an extraordinary task. Over the course of 5 seasons, the show reveals the systemic inequality that constrains the lives of the urban poor. Simon weaves together an unprecedented analysis of several interrelated institutions and their effects both on the urban community as a whole and on the individuals who make up that community. The Wire has won much deserved acclaim from media critics and journalists across the country. However, I want to emphasize what Simon has accomplished from the perspective of social science. Quite simply, The Wire has enhanced both popular and scholarly understanding of the challenges of urban life and the problems of urban inequality. And I think it is always important in discussing The Wire to emphasize that it is not a documentary, but rather fiction. And as with any work of fiction, the writer creates characters and plot lines that advance the story they wish to tell. What is the story that The Wire seeks to tell then? The show initially set out to expose the drug war as a fraudulent attack on the urban poor and communities of color. Subsequent seasons sought to examine the role of other social institutions and social forces in creating and maintaining social inequality, the disappearance of jobs and the devaluation of labor, the inner workings of urban politics, the troubled urban education system, and the negligence of mainstream media in its coverage of important local issues. Each character in the 5 seasons, including cops, gangsters, politicians, union officials, teachers, and journalists, serves the purpose of advancing these storylines with unequaled success and rare nuance. According to Simon, the central and straightforward goal of The Wire is to show that the system, quote unquote, is broken and that it fails individuals and families. With its sophisticated critique of the structure of urban inequality, the show drove this point home. The Wire exposes the systemic inequality that impacts the lives of the urban poor in a way that is rarely captured in a television show. Moreover, the portrayals in The Wire are anything but shallow caricatures of the urban poor. Instead, The Wire develops morally complex characters on each side of the law, and with its scrupulous exploration of the inner workings of various institutions, including drug-dealing gangs, the police, politicians, unions, public schools, and the print media, viewers become aware that individuals' decisions and behavior are often shaped by, indeed limited by, social, political, and economic forces beyond their control. For example, anyone who watches season 4 will come away with a clear understanding of how the public school system has failed poor inner city students and why the atmosphere in these schools is so devastating and hardly conducive to learning. Over the course of that season, The Wire combats the misguided belief that the inner city students themselves are largely responsible for their lack of educational achievement. Indeed, the show has contributed to an awareness of systemic urban inequality that has highlighted the incredible changes, or I should say incredible challenges, inner city residents face. In watching this fictional drama, viewers gain a new understanding of the multifaceted and interrelated aspects of the structure of urban inequality that so profoundly shape the lives and life chances of poor inner city residents. At the same time, part of the success of the show is that it has in some ways confounded both academics and the general public. You know, social scientists may not be quite sure how to deal with the show because it fundamentally challenges some previously accepted yet overly simplistic notions of people in the inner city. Those in a wider public respond as if they had no idea these conditions existed, much like the reaction to Katrina. When the poor are isolated from mainstream institutions, folk understandings of their world and other misperceptions infuse even academic thought. And too often this results in policy responses and debates that are inaccurate or unhelpful. In a unique way, The Wire offers a new foundation to attack social isolation by making us aware of how scholars, policymakers, and the general public form opinions about the problems of urban inequality without a full appreciation of their complexity. And what distinguishes David Simon from other filmmakers is his incredible creativity and sophisticated vision of how the world works. He's widely read and has a comprehensive understanding and appreciation of the serious scholarship on social inequality. And personally, I am so pleased and proud that he is the second recipient of the William Julius Wilson Award for Advancement of Social Justice. President Ford, will you join me in the presentation of the award?
I really am honored. Dr. Wilson neglected to say something very fundamental about how we got to know each other, which was that at some point when we first got in contact, I had to fess up that his book, When Work Disappears, which came out, I guess, about a year before The Corner, was one that we not only relied on in casting our net as research to try to figure out that book, but we also used it as the framework for season 2 of The Wire, at least for some of the arguments we were making about deindustrialization and its effects. So this is a debt repaid in that sense. We copped some of your work, and I get the trophy, so that's good. Boy, the more I hear The Wire talked about in those terms, the more I think it's a pretty good show, and I got to go back and watch it. So tonight's talk, if I read what I said it would be about, it's the end of the American century and what's in it for you. I guess that sort of depends who you are. I'm being a little bit flippant there. Not about the end of the American century, but the what's in it for you part. Because frankly, what's in it for all of us is a lot less than we'd hoped. If you think I'm being hyperbolic, I hope you're right. I hope the American century is still to come. I hope that we have our game on. I hope that we know where we're going. I hope that some of these decisions that seem so fixed and certain and wrong can be either undone or that perhaps are less wrong than they seem to be on their face. I think that because I'm an American and I wake up in the same country as everybody here, and I want to see the game on Sunday like everyone else. And I want to think the best for our future. But I've been paying attention for a long time from a very strange place, which is in a second-tier American city, a deindustrialized city of Baltimore. And I watched trends, and I watched how we went about the process of recognizing, or rather failing to recognize, our problems, much less whatever minimal efforts were made to actually address those problems. And I got a schooling in our capacity for reform and for self-governance, and none of that gives me any cause for real optimism. I'm listening to a level of political discourse in this country that is embarrassing to me. It bears no relation to the problems on the ground. And so I find myself with these opportunities to make television shows. And how that happened is almost that would be a whole lecture unto itself. It was very improbable. I wanted to be a journalist my whole life. I thought I would end my career on the copy desk, bumming cigarettes from younger reporters, telling them lies about what it was like to work with Mencken and Manchester and Damon Runyon, people I never met. As it happened, journalism went south long before I did, and I stumbled into this thing called television. And then further, I stumbled into HBO, which was this strange window in which they actually didn't seem to care whether or not I had an audience or not. I'm proof positive that you can go at least a decade in some small corners of American television and never actually develop a mass audience. And they let me write what I wanted and produce what I wanted, and so far, nobody's come to get me or slammed the window shut on my fingers. So what to do? Somebody gives you 10 hours or 12 hours or 7 hours to tackle whatever it is, to tackle a subject. It seemed to me, with the training of a journalist and not of somebody whoever woke up one morning and said, I need to be in the entertainment industry, it seemed to me that the most interesting and subversive thing you could do would be to actually have an argument or a debate or a provocation, whatever you want to call it, in which you tried to figure out what you wanted to say about something. And that sounds really simple, but I guarantee you many of the people working in Hollywood, if not most of the people working in Hollywood, do not begin a project by saying, but what do we think? What do we think about this? What do we think about the country's economic priorities? What do we think about crime? What do we think about medical policies, healthcare? These are conversations that don't occur when shows are being pitched or planned. People are thinking, because it's the entertainment industry and there's a ridiculous amount of money involved, they're thinking, how can we get the most people to watch our show? And to keep watching our show so we can keep having a show. I mean, it's all about franchises. It's again, the entertainment industry is exactly what it sounds like. Emerson said a century ago that most men lead lives of quiet desperation. And I think when he said it, he thought he was speaking of the whole of mankind, or certainly the whole of the America that he knew. I'm going to be a little bit off color here and say that, a century later, there's one half of America that's still, well, not one half, but there's certainly a significant share of America that's still leading lives of quiet desperation, while Americans who have traveled the other road are leading lives of quiet masturbation. And their tool of choice is television. Television has been so relentless as a medium in delivering humor and sex and violence. Not that there's anything wrong with sex or violence, but sex or violence without a point, only for its own sake. And redemption, over and over and over again. And by redemption, I mean cheap redemption, the kind where you catch the bad guy, you get the girl. The fraud gets shown up. The right guy gets elected. The system still stands at the end. That's what television is sold for most of its life. Think about that. The medium that is, and I say this in the alma mater of